Alex Weaver here in Studio 3 regarding the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series schedule, and I am joined by NASCAR's Senior Vice President of Racing Development and Strategy, Ben Kennedy. Ben, let's talk about some of the announcements that race fans have already heard about. What influenced those decisions and those changes?
Yeah, I think really, working with our track partners and again, hearing what our fans would like to see. I think starting, with the All-Star race, we saw, obviously a sellout crowd this year, a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement around it. And I think it being our 75th anniversary and kind of a throwback to our history and our roots was something that was really special and received well. So excited to be going back to North Wilkesboro for the All-Star race. And looking forward to Bristol going back on concrete and Indianapolis on the oval as well. We've seen the road course play out for a handful of years at Indianapolis, and what better way to return to the oval than the 30th anniversary of the Brickyard 400 and really make it something special again. And again, I think the way that the next gen cars are racing on a lot of these tracks, I'm excited to see what the racing product looks like for the first time when the next gen cars run around the oval.
Awesome. And as we continue to look at specific tracks, I think Atlanta is probably the one that's highlighted that's going to see the most change. The first Atlanta race moves into the second race of the season following the Daytona 500. And what's the benefit of having these two drafting style races? We're going from the high banks of Daytona to now Atlanta that has completely been reconfigured to a super speedway. What's the benefit of that?
Yeah, I think now that we've seen Atlanta play out and how the racing product has frankly evolved there, having it come out of our biggest event of the year, Daytona 500, and then carrying that momentum to Atlanta where, frankly, you have a lot of people that will tune into that Daytona 500. They'll also tune into the second race of the season. Unfortunately, it won't be an Auto Club next year. But going to Atlanta in that second slot before we go to the West Coast, I think it's going to be something really special. And then once we get to the fall, it's going to help us kick off our playoffs. Will be the first race of the round of 16. So, I think having an Atlanta, a Watkins Glen, and then a Bristol night race in that round of 16, three very different types of tracks. It's going to test our drivers quite a bit as they think about the round of 12 and continuing through the playoffs. So I'm excited to see the change for Atlanta, and I think it's a testament to the great racing product that we've seen there the past year or two.
And let's connect the dots for those race fans, because Atlanta will now open the playoffs, which means that Darlington is going to be our regular season finale. We've seen spectacular racing. It's one of NASCAR's hardest racetracks for our drivers, and there's been chaos when Darlington has been the playoff opener. So in what ways will that be amplified as it's now the regular season finale?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really cool, something special, something we've discussed a lot as a scheduling group is, where does the end of our season essentially culminate? And, as we think about the 2024 schedule, I guess you back up to the 23 schedule, we have one off week. When we go into 24, we'll have 2 off weeks from the last week of July and the first week of August for the Olympics. So we played around with a few different scenarios and ultimately landed on this. And I think coming out of the Olympics with Richmond, Michigan, Daytona, which we always know is a bit of a wild card race, and then to go to Darlington, which iconic race, amazing race, which we saw a few weeks ago there. I think it's going to be a really cool place to end our regular season for next year, and then start with a really strong slate of playoff tracks.
And there'll still be that wild card element at the end of the regular season because Daytona is the 25th race, so it's right before Darlington. Now let's move on to a road course in upstate New York. Watkins Glen will also find itself a playoff spot. What led to that decision to make a playoff race come to the state of New York?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about that and, whether Watkins Glen would stay in its original home or potentially move somewhere else. But we felt like, seeing the sellout crowds that we've had in Watkins Glen the past several years, the racing that it's put on, and frankly, an opportunity to shake up the playoff schedule a little bit. We've had kind of status quo the past few years, and I know we shook it up a ton 3 or 4 years ago. But to be able to introduce a new road course to the playoffs, and again, I think the diversity that we have in types of tracks in that first round, something that races like a plate, something that races frankly like a road course because it is a road course, and then a short track. Again, the variability is going to be fun to watch.
Thanks, Ben. And fans, for more information on the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series schedule, log on to NASCAR.com.